we'd be done for about quarter. So hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of what was the Magical Shit Show, but we're having a bit of a rebrand. We're now going to be called the Magical Human Show. Is that correct? Claire, this was your idea. Let us know what the thinking was.
Yeah, sorry, Tamar. I was aware of the fact that we were covering so much more than digestive system issues and sacral and solar plexus issues. So I felt that also that we share this value in the fact that we want to encourage more magic into people's lives and awaken their spirituality. Indeed, I have just decided to call myself, as of yesterday, a spirit doula, because I help people birth their spirit selves. Came to me after a lovely meditation. So I was like, okay, that's actually what I do. So, but I didn't rename this before that. So I felt, and then when I chatted it over with you guys, then, you guys were really up for it as well, because it just means that we're not restricted.
Yes, it was limiting us in a little way. We will still talk about poo though, June. I know you were worried that we won't. If it comes up, we'll discuss it because it's all part of the magical life that we live.
It's very important, yes.
I think also, Claire, you were saying there were some problems with posting us on social media because we had a profanity in the title.
Yes.
So yes, multiple reasons. Yeah. Okay, so welcome to the new Magical Human Show. So Claire, you're going to set the scene for us with what moon we're on. I believe we had a new moon yesterday, is that correct? And that might be why my cat's being an annoying little toad. Is that right?
And my son. Yes, absolutely. New moon in Capricorn yesterday, which was the biggest solar eclipse miss of the year, which means when we have a solar eclipse, the Earth, Sun and moon line up. And basically, when it's a miss, the biggest miss, what it means is when the sun is behind the moon, it should be a completely dark moon, but it's not. It still gives a light to some crescent element of the moon, so it shows that you can still see part of the moon. And the energy and the message in that is like complete clarity over everything that is serving you or not serving you. And the Capricorn energy is all about putting the structures in place, creating the groundwork for the visions that you have come up with, the kind of diamonds that you have percolated over your shadow walk that's been going on since the 1st of November. So that time out to reflect, process, you should be starting to feel slightly more awake now, not entirely, because we're still in the kind of, that part of our processing until the beginning of February, but you should have some ideas. And so the Capricorn new moon is saying, right, what is it going to take for you to get what you want to happen? What are the structures you need to put in place? So that means starting new things, new hobbies, new habits, but putting the structures in place. It doesn't mean immediately starting to do them, because there's this whole, I call it well, I find the new year being in this time of year, I think I've mentioned this in previous stuff we've done together, you two, about just a complete and utter kind of, well, it derails people. People come up with these whole concepts of kind of all the things they're going to do differently, and the energy is just not behind them to support that. And it's kind of like a fool's new year, whereas the April Fool was the original new year, or one of the original new years. And we've obviously got the 1st of November if you're a pagan. So there's lots of new years. So you have to pick which one you want to go with, and that's absolutely fine. But this new year, and also because there's a lot of people that think it's new year, there is an energy around that, an energy of newness. But I would suggest that that is just a kind of the beginning of the reawakening of, so I'm saying structures, I'm not telling you to do things. Does that make sense? It's like put the structures in place, but don't do things. This is also birch, this new moon. So we're under the month tree, Celtic tree moon of birch until February. And birch is Lady of the Woods. She lights the way in the woods when all the other trees are naked. They don't have their leaves on. There she is. Not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them glinting away with the sunlight bouncing off her beautiful trunk, showing us that there is light in darkness. And she is always the first to colonize. She is new beginnings. She's really cleansing, which is why cradles used to be made out of birch. Besoms and brooms are made out of birch at the bottom because there's this cleansing energy. So I think I've said it fairly clearly. So you've got the Capricorn energy of setting things up and structures and working out what it's going to take to make your dreams. The clearing energy of Birch to get rid of people and things that no longer serve you or stand in the way with their views of you or their just general blockings of your energy, etc. Gone. And kind of the energy to kind of come into this newness with the new moon. Have I said that well? Because
it kind of sounds like we're planning. We're not yet doing. We're just thinking about how we're going to do it during the year. And I don't really like the whole dates with the new year thing. It's more of an energy thing. Have I got the energy to do something new right now? Or have I got the capacity or the time or the money, depending on what it is you're doing? Yeah. Yeah. What about you, June?
Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it goes along with how I've been feeling, sweeping out things that I love the idea of the besom. Get the witch's broomstick out. Yeah, I did have one. Yeah, and I just, yes, the birch tree. I love it. I've always loved birch trees. They grew quite a lot near the lake where we used to go when I was a kid. And I've always loved them. The feel of the birch bark. I mean, I grew up next to a native reservation, and you know, they were one of the most oppressed, I suppose, if you want to. Well, I don't. Yeah, they seemed to have had a very rough ride, a very rough ride. The worst bit of land, the worst educational facilities, and it's all coming to light now. But you know, our family was always very fond of learning about the native traditions, and you know, we went camping a lot, birch bark canoes. Oh my gosh, they are amazing, absolutely amazing. And of course, they did make cradles for their babies out of birch bark, you know. And I've got a lady in York who is a native of Mexico, and she's got links. Bizarrely, she has links to that reservation where I live near, and she's got friends there and in Toronto as well. And somebody sent her one of those little nests for her new baby. Yeah, yeah, it's just
amazing.
lovely.
6 degrees of separation really operating there. The whole world is connected in one way or another. And I
It sure is.
forgot to say, you know, when the birch bark peels off, I use that a lot for spell work because I don't peel it off the tree because I'm like, why would I do that? That's really cruel. But if you're walking around like a gardens or a woods where there is a lot of birch, then you quite often can find it on the ground. And there is a Chinese silver birch which has a slightly pink color to it, which is my favorite, pinky peach. And yeah, those are like love spells, cleansing, stuff like that.
Because the birch, they shed themselves, don't they? I think my parents had one in their old garden and it would be all over the place because you don't need to shed it. It does it for you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't go peeling off people's skin just for your own gain. To the harm of none and the good of all, not, you know, your own gain. So you were mentioning birth and things like that. So Tamar, tell us, what are your plans for 2024? What are you birthing into 2024?
So as part of my counselling training, you have to do a certain amount of CPD each year. And sometimes it feels like you're just doing it for the sake of it because you've got to get a certain number of hours. But this year came across my path fertility counselling training, which I'm interested in. I already do infant loss and pregnancy anxiety. So this is kind of another part of that journey. So I've got some training coming up in March, and then there'll be some more training. I think later on you do like a 2-part course. So I'm really interested because I kind of feel like I've been drifting a little bit with what I specialise in. I don't really specialise. And that's always something I've been interested in. So I think that's kind of the direction I'm going to be going in. So I'm really excited for that. Normally it's just like, oh, just get it done. But this one I'm actually excited for. So that would be nice.
That's fantastic. What can you expect to learn on that? I mean, I think fertility issues are becoming increasingly more of a problem because of people's diets and health and well-being just not being very high. So
and I think it's evolutionary as well. I think we're evolving differently because the number of people on the planet and things. So I'm not sure. It's going to be really interesting. I think it'll probably link into a lot to the sort of the grieving you know, not being able to get pregnant and when maybe IVF doesn't work and all that kind of stuff. But I'm not entirely sure. It's not a journey that I went on. I didn't have to go through any of that. So it's going to be a lot of new information. So I think that's why I'm so excited. If I'd been through it, it would be I'm just getting a certificate to, you know, on something I already know, but this is not something I know an awful lot about. So
keep us posted. I look forward to hearing about the different kind of parts of your journey as you learn new things, because it is such a huge issue. Wouldn't you agree, June? Like, I don't know.
do.
Did either of you have miscarriages? I had loads. Well, not loads. But
Well, not that I know of. I mean, a lot of women do have them without even being aware.
mm.
You know, no, I don't think I did.
I did. And I remember feeling like some kind of angel of death at one point. I just thought, what is wrong with me? Why can't I hold a baby in my body? Obviously, I didn't know then what I know now. And it all came fine, and it always was going to become fine. And that was part of my journey. But at the time, the kind of, you know, the feelings you get as a woman of not being able to do what you kind of feel is your primary purpose on this earth is quite difficult. And then there's also people when they can't do it properly, as you say, and then there's people that don't want to do it. So there needs to be some therapy for those as well, like how they're going to cope with everyone else's expectations about their body that are not their own.
Well, they're saying that, aren't they? The newer generations, millennials and onwards, and are choosing not to have kids. And part of it is economical because they can't even afford a house. You know, who would bring a child into this current world? You know, I've read on the news that apparently as the UK, we bombed somewhere last night and it didn't go through Parliament. It's
What?
you know, the world. Oh, I don't
Yeah,
know.
okay, not no.
Not in this magic circle.
No. So, but you understand, you know, if I was of that age now, I don't know if I would have kids and bring them into this world because the way it is at the moment, until the awakening happens, that was a cat. Until the awakening happens and things change, it's not a nice environment. So you understand why people aren't having them, and there is a lot of shame and guilt around women and parenting. And so when I had my son, I had to have a cesarean. Didn't know at the time it was because of something skeletal, but I felt like a huge failure. It's like, what, you know, people say, well, women gave birth in fields and were fine. He was like, well, the mortality rate was quite high, but okay, I see what you're saying. So you kind of have that feeling that why can't I do this thing that is the natural thing? And like you say, the thing that you were designed to do. I don't know if that's the case anymore, but you know, there's all this guilt and shame around doing it properly. And oh, you had a cesarean, or oh, you had medication. You should just be able to pop the child out. I don't think people always, unless you've done it, you don't understand the pain that comes with
Everybody got an opinion. I don't understand why people see pregnant women or women of childbearing age as legitimate targets for people to dump their crap on.
Yeah.
It happens all the time.
And touching.
I just, oh yeah. Let me just talk. What? I know. But there's all of the horror stories that you get told when you're pregnant. Oh, I had a terrible time. Why can't people tell people the joyful bits?
Yeah.
Why can't people be happy for someone, whatever their choice is, and just give them love and compassion and support? This is the world we want to live in. This is where we're headed, ladies. I feel this very strongly.
And
although also in, sorry Claire, also in the news was the thing about they've made like a synthetic womb. They've been growing sheep in them, and it's and this will really help with when babies are born too early. Is it, or are you just trying to make the females defunct because you don't like how we are in the world? I think this could very easily be abused. I have,
you know, something, you need to stop reading the news.
I really do.
Give it up.
Really do.
Right now.
We don't know any of
this. Informed. I don't want to be ignorant.
I don't want to know these things.
But it's informed in the right way, Tamar, about kind of, you know, the stuff that you need to focus on and the stuff you don't. Or maybe we need her to do that, June, so we can just, she can be the representative of the person.
Keep you grounded.
And we can just keep kind of, you know, grounding her. Now, what you were saying, June, we can expand that scope right out to all of humanity, this judgment and viewpoint about other people and what they are doing and not doing, and everyone spreading their kind of focus, I wanted to share something positive with you based on what you just said. So we talked last time about the solar flares. There's been an extraordinary amount of solar flares since we last met. Even the solar flares keep continuing. And someone I was talking to in my healing collective this morning was saying, why is there all these solar flares? What's your opinion? And I said, I think it's because the sun is sending us light, and because there's so much darkness around with all the things that are going on, it's like the help from the intergalactic realms, which I appreciate some people won't be able to get their head around, but it's like sending down all these photons of light energy to kind of, brighten and lighten. And it's building foundations of love, not fear. And she said to me, well, Claire, that is an Inca prophecy that I have just come across for all these solar flares. So I'm going to read it to you now. So we know there's lots of prophecies. There has been prophecies I know of anyway. George Orwell's 1984, then the 2012 kind of Mayan prophecy, the world is going to come to an end. We have all these kind of, people that are saying, freedom fighters, etc., saying things have got to change, things are changing, we're birthing a new world. We have people that are taking that really literally and going, oh my God, everything's going to collapse and it's going to be a new, it's going to implode like the tower. And actually it doesn't work like that. It's much softer. And then we've got the Incas saying the end of time, and everyone's going, oh, the end of time. But actually it's written in the stars that we're in this new human homo luminous being is being born, with severe weather continuing to affect the United States and Europe. Unusual storm activity and tornadoes caused by man-made climate change causes widespread damage. Heat waves and drought worsen in Africa and Australia. European summers become intolerably warm. Community gardens spring up as globalization changes into localization. Solar storms intensify, threatening the power grid. Less developed countries burden the initial pain of climate change. Denial sets in the minds of many. Downloads of the universal revolutionary codes become available in the solar storms striking the Earth. Solar storms and environmental toxins disrupt the psyche of persons who do not have a spiritual practice. Geopolitical crises intensify, and spontaneous enlightenment is common. And then that becomes peace. So I'd say that most of that stuff is exactly what is happening on some level at the moment. And without spiritual practice, people don't have a context for what is going on. Because if you understand with spiritual practice that in light there is always dark, and in dark there is always light, so above, so below, that principle really applies, then you can understand things with a kind of a much more complete, unified perspective. And
Yeah.
that's what I have to say.
Yeah. And the light illuminates the darkness. And that's why a lot of things that we'd rather not know about are coming to the surface. And I just want to say, Tamar, I do agree with you. We do need to cast one eye on these things. But I prefer to choose when I'm going to think about them and send love and light around that situation. And I think my spiritual practice, if it sounds such a grand, pretentious term to be saying, and I don't want, I'm a very practical minded person, very down to earth. And I think I love listening to Pam Gregory and Heather Ensworth. They've just had the most fascinating conversation just yesterday. And it's really, really good. They're talking from their own personal experiences and also of what's happening right now, and how, because they're both incredibly private and they don't normally do that. And I'm a bit like that too, because I'm a Scorpio and I'm like, no, don't, like Tamar said, people touching your belly when you're pregnant. No. Internal exams. No. But also intruding into my life and telling me what's what. No, I'm sorry. I will ask you when I want your opinion. And I think a lot of people hopefully are developing that, self-defense, because I think we need it. We need to protect ourselves to an extent and let in what is going to nurture us and bring us joy. that was one of Pam's messages. Get in touch with the joy. And that's why being a birthing assistant is such a wonderful thing to do, because there is so much joy around it. And it has become mechanized, and it's become managed, and it's become a series of crises, or expected crises, or manufactured crises, because that's what the medical model does really well, is deals with crises. They don't know what to do if there isn't a crisis. So and that's where we come in. I don't call myself a doula anymore,
I
because
was
it
going to
does
ask, is it the
trigger
same
people
thing?
into thinking, they seem to have an attitude that doulas are very argumentative and difficult.
So an advocate
Well,
then.
sometimes, yes, sometimes that's necessary. However, it is the woman's own journey, and it's not our job to be in there creating tension. We're supposed to be helping it. So I call myself a birthing assistant.
Okay. I always fancied doing that, but I probably couldn't do it while my son was small, because it's out of hours, I imagine, is it?
Well, it's workable. I did it when my kids were small, and people stayed with them while I went there. And you don't have to be there for the whole birth. You can go in, and come out, and just be there at crucial times. It's very flexible in that way. You can make your own arrangement with how it's going to work. And I've got two ladies due next year at more or less the same time. One's in Wakefield, one's in York, and in the country in York, furthermore. So I haven't got a car. So, it's like trying to work out the logistics of that. But I didn't seem to get as many calls about being a birth assistant after my kids left home. It was very interesting. But that was kind of the time when doulas started coming in, the last 20 years or so. And now I'm back. I'm back doing it again. It's really exciting.
I think it's something I'd like to do in the future. I like the idea of a death doula as well. So for the beginning and the end, and just be with people when they're really vulnerable and it's a hard time, and just be there to advocate and just make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
It's quite exciting.
Huge transitions. Yeah. There is a death doula training. In fact, there's a lovely lady in York who does a death doula training, and she has been in touch with me. I was in touch with her when we were setting up our PHA hub, and because I really wanted to have somebody of her expertise in the team, and she said not now, but now she's got back in touch with me. She's saying I'm ready. So that's really, really good. Yeah. So
I'd love to do that as well. I'd really love to help people pass with peace.
Well, I think calling yourself a spirit doula is perfect.
Well,
because
that's the whole package then, isn't it, Claire? The beginning, the middle, and the end.
Well, well, it's like I don't want to be physically in the room when someone has a baby, although I could handle that. I don't want to be doing that, but it's the spiritual kind of, helping people reconnect with their light is very much what I do, and helping them to get their perspective over the experiences they've gone through, their traumas, in a different way, and to build in resilience is, I think, incredibly important, because we are encouraged to get totally caught up in the minutiae. That's the way our structures are set at the moment, and we need to kind of find ways to step back and take a breath and just look freshly at the situation and see what's really happened without all the triggers. There's so much clearing going on at the moment. Like, I know this across the board. This has been a huge clearing of ancestral energy, and so people, as we move towards being more light, we're putting away the things that we've carried in our bodies and in our minds and our hearts and our spirit psyches for generations. We're clearing that so that we can be lighter and more us, really, more ourselves, and not have these filters that we're living through that are actually being set by somebody else's experience 1,000 years ago. I mean, I'm being flippant, but I'm not being flippant. It's like, whoa, get that gone, and then I'm gonna be more me, and I'll be making decisions from me, not because my so-and-so sitting on my shoulder speaking through my back brain going, you're not going to be very good at that. Worried about this.
We'll have none of that. But I think a lot of that, bringing that back to the whole birthing thing, you know, you create your birthing plan and they all laugh and go, you can write it. But when it comes down to it, nothing, you know, I wanted a water birth and music and all very calm. I ended up strapped to a hospital bed being induced for 3 days and then had a cesarean. It was nothing like what I wanted. It's not the birth I wanted. It was horrible. And they said, when they said you have to have a cesarean, I cried. I was like, I haven't read about cesareans. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't want one. And then you have to sign a scary form. But they say all these awful things could happen. You've got to sign this to say you won't sue us if you die. Like, I really want to be dealing with that right now. So there's sort of the medical expectation of, you know, you will come into hospital and you will, and the whole laying on your back giving birth. Do we know about this?
Yes, we do.
Shall I just summarize it for any viewers that don't know what it is? So the reason we lay on our backs to give birth is because there was a king, I can't remember which one it was, who had
Louis the 14th.
Louis the 14th had a fetish and wanted to
Yeah.
watch his wives give birth in that way. And
His
so
mistress. It was his mistress.
there we go. It's
Yeah.
because of a man's fetish that we're expected to lay on our back to give birth, and it's so unnatural. And that's why women like to be on all fours or hanging over something, because that then you've kind of got everything flowing in the right direction.
Watching.
But in the midwife, and I watched the midwife, all of the series, I just love that stuff. They're all standing up, squatting, doing whatever they need to do. So we were still allowed to do it a more natural way. I would argue I was told I had to be on my back when I probably did have to be eventually because of my epidural. But, you know, I think that they have decided now it's just easier for everyone to see what's going on. And actually,
yeah. But it's not the natural way of doing it. So, you know, there's the expectations around the medical model. And, you know, I think for especially the NHS in this country that's so understaffed, bless them, tried their hardest, doing it the most efficient way.
Yeah.
You know, it's get them through, get them birth, get them gone, because we need that for somebody else. So getting it done as quickly, as seamlessly as possible becomes the norm. And I'm not saying it's their fault. I've seen the way they worked in the NHS, but it's not natural and it's not calm. You know, it then becomes trauma when it doesn't need to be. I counselled a couple of trainee midwives in the last couple of years at a uni, and both were trauma informed and were going to become very good trauma informed midwives because of their past and their learning. And I think we need more of that. And it would be really helpful to have a trauma informed midwife on every shift. I know it's not always possible, but, you know, especially women that have suffered abuse, sexual abuse, giving birth can be really, really traumatizing. So having that kind of understanding in the room, rather than, you know, I saw so many different midwives and doctors, I couldn't tell you who they were. No consistent care because he was on shift, off shift. Even my midwife appointments in the 9 months I was pregnant, I didn't see the same person twice.
Yeah.
You know, and as I say, it's not the NHS's fault, but it really does affect your experience.
Yeah.
And that's the child's first experience of life. So, you know, it's like we're affected and they're affected, and it's this whole beginning in. So it's very timely to be talking about birth at the beginning of the birch moon, which is the new birth, new growth, new time, new you. Yes. So yeah.
Can I just go back to what you said about the old New Year was in April? Because I remember you saying this before, and I was like, oh, that's really fascinating. Because somebody said to me recently that she understood that in Egypt the New Year was in April. She was going to Egypt for a New Year's celebration, but she didn't expect the people who live there to be celebrating it because they celebrate in April. Does either of you know anything about this? Is this a Muslim thing?
It was a calendar, wasn't it? Wasn't it when we changed to the whatever calendar we're on now, it shifted it, which is why April 1st became April Fool's Day to shame people out of celebrating it.
We're now on the Gregorian.
Oh, did it really?
And it was was it the Julius calendar that we were on before?
Yeah.
But I would have thought, logically speaking, June, it would have been after the spring equinox, because if we think about it, and it wouldn't have been a Muslim thing, it would have been a kind of a practical thing of the fact that the day and night were in equal balance. So, and it would have been around that time, wouldn't it? So it would have been like, right, now the sun is leading us because it's the light side wakes up. So it's the new year. So they were very much sun worshippers. So
well, yeah, but their days are equal all the time anyway, because they're near the equator. They've got equal day and night all the time.
No
Ah,
point.
I don't know. Then it's got to be linked to astrology, June. Well, it has
Yeah,
to be linked
yeah,
to astrology because even though might have equal day and night, it doesn't matter. The sun is still at some point in the sky journeying, isn't it?
yeah,
The
yeah.
light may be the same, but the sun is still making its way through the solar system.
Sure, sure, of
So it'll be about the journey. It will definitely be linked 100% to astrology.
course.
I feel that to be very true. And it's interesting that they see it that way because then pagans and the old religion, the goddess religion, see it as kind of, the new beginning is when this, like, we go into that dark period. It's like we start off with the dark recovery, rest, and recuperation, and then we come out. And yeah, and they're like, it's New Year now, so they almost have a longer, darker period in some respects. Like they
Mm,
start with the light after that. The darkness for them is at the end, so they reflect after they've done something, and we're saying we reflect before it. So it's just,
mm,
interesting.
yeah. And Imbolc as well. I mean, that is fascinating because that's almost exactly where the Chinese New Year is. Is February 10th. And in anthroposophical circles, they celebrate Candlemas. But in North America, it's Groundhog Day. Do you guys have you've presumably seen the movie?
But remind us what Groundhog Day is, just for our viewers.
Yeah, it's not really about the film. The
No.
films just took the name. Um, because what it is about is the little groundhog, a little prairie dog, which is like a pretty big gerbil, basically, that lives underground. And where they live, out in the prairies mostly, it gets very, very cold in the winter, lots of snow. So they just stay all in their little burrows, all nice and snug. And then the beginning of February, it starts to get warmer. The snow starts to melt a bit. And they come up and they have a look around. And if they see their shadow, they get scared and they run back inside and they stay there for another 30 days. If they don't see their shadow, which is perverse because it would be a cloudy day, they go, oh, I guess I'm out now. And spring has begun in that. That's the indicator of the spring. Yeah.
It's like a weather forecast.
Yeah,
Yeah,
a bit.
next weather forecast, and it is, and in bulk is, the traditional like lambing time, February. That's what it
Mm.
stands for, lamb's milk or May. So it's just,
Oh, does it? Oh, see, oh, I learned so much here. This is great.
so it's vision board time. So the next time we meet, which will be on the full moon on the 26th, we three shall meet again in thunder and in rain. Hopefully not. But
No, apparently.
no, we will talk about the full moon and the fact that we've got in bulk just around there, and of course the Chinese wood dragon year. So we can discuss all those things next time and what they mean. So I, for one, have spoken. The rest of you, have you spoken?
Have you both said what your intentions are for this year? Because I think my intention then derailed us into talking about birth.
That's June. What are your intentions? Gives me some time.
Well, given the theme that has been pervasive in all of my listenings to people like Tim Wilde also and Lee Harris and all these lovely people who give pronouncements about things. Um, I feel like I very much want to approach everyone in my life with love and compassion always, even if they annoy me.
That would be challenging.
Is a
It would be
challenge. I'm
challenging
telling
already.
you, it is a challenge. And also with myself.
Mm.
Because the fact that I find other people annoying is partly because I'm annoyed with myself for a load of things. And a lot of it is the ancestral stuff that I talked to Claire about recently. And there's more, of course, there's always more. You know, clear something and there's more to talk about. So yeah, I mean, Heather was saying that Heather Ensworth was saying that this particular new moon is a good time for doing some clearing as well. So she was saying get near a fire, do a fire ceremony of whatever form, candle or fireplace, and or outdoors, and do let go. sweep out with the broom or whatever, and then set your intention for what you want going forward. So that's kind of what I did, and still doing every day.
And my intentions for 2024 are to get well, I run a healing collective of healers, so we've got lots of events coming up, so getting that going. I might write a book this year, and just carry on training. I'm starting in a new astrology course for people, so I want that to fly, to teach people astrology. So I'm going to spend this year being more of a teacher to others, I think, or continuing my teaching efforts of sharing the love. And for myself, it is about kind of just more about honoring the self. So like looking after self, I think that's incredibly important in terms of boundaries. And I think when people frustrate you, like you're talking about, June, it's an indication of where your focus needs to go to, and Tamar, I'm sure will back this up, to work out like what's being mirrored or what's being tested.
Yeah.
Because it's not always mirrored. Like some people say, oh, you're mirroring, because you've got that issue too. But actually it's like, no, I'm just testing that you actually have your like self sorted. So it's like learning to see the truth in all of it.
And triggers, what are you being triggered? What is it? What's the wound in you that's being triggered? Quite a lot of the time it's in a child. So what happened to the child that's coming out now? It's usually a good place to start.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
amazing. A pleasure as always, ladies.
As always.
Any final words before we close for today?
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you and be well. And we'll put all the contact details for each of us in the bottom. So if you want therapy, contact Tamar, especially around fertility and women's issues and trauma. And if you want childbirthing assistance support or kinesiology or acupuncture, then speak to June. Have I got that right, June?
Yes, and I'm actually putting in place some teachings as well. I'm doing a children's well-being workshop tomorrow and again in February, and I'm going to do it monthly and build on, start with basics for helping people use the natural methods that I have acquired over the years from kinesiology and acupressure and so on, to help get their own toolbox, empower people at home to feel more at ease with not panicking when their child gets ill, and feeling like they know the difference between when it's serious and when it's something they can manage. And then I'm teaching Touch for Health level 1, starting again next weekend. So yes, lots of stuff coming up.
Fantastic. Yeah.
And Claire, what do they come to you for what do they come to you?
They come to me if they want an astrology chart reading, they want to learn astrology, they want to learn witchcraft, they want any spiritual counseling. So anybody that wants to deal with any ancestral or previous life stuff, then, or even in this life, clearing and magic circles and online circles. So I run an online circle on a Monday every fortnight for those that wish to sit in circle and raise their vibration.
Yeah. Thank you very much, both. We will see everyone again in 2 weeks on the next full moon.
Fantastic.